Listen carefully, because this might be the moment your entire life shifts. Most people are sitting on the sidelines, watching life pass them by convincing themselves that one day things will get better. But one day is a myth, someday is an excuse, and waiting is the fastest way to lose everything you could become. Waiting is the silent trap that keeps most people stuck in the same place year after year, hoping life will magically improve while nothing changes. People sit around telling themselves they need the right moment, the perfect timing, or some external sign before they finally move. But the truth is that waiting does nothing except delay your growth and keep you locked in the same cycle of frustration. Every day spent waiting is a day you could have used to build something that actually moves your life forward, yet most people don't even realize how much time they've wasted. Waiting feels safe, but it's the reason so many stay broke, lost, or average. When you wait, you hand control of your life to everything but yourself. You start blaming circumstances, blaming luck, blaming opportunities, blaming other people for not giving you a chance. But the brutal reality is that nobody owes you anything, and the world rewards the people who build real abilities, not the people who sit around hoping for things to work out. You can't hope your way into success. You can only skill your way into it. That's why the gap between where you are and where you want to be is not fate, it's capability. Skills are the only real escape because they give you leverage over your future. When you know how to do something valuable, you don't need to beg for chances or wait for someone to discover you. You create your own opportunities. You make yourself useful. You make yourself needed. Skills turn you from someone who is replaceable into someone who is impossible to ignore. Once you build the right capabilities, the world responds differently to you, not because you're lucky, but because you've become valuable. The people who win in life aren't necessarily the smartest or the most talented. They're the ones who decided to stop waiting and start learning. They chose to take responsibility instead of making excuses. They invested their time into mastering the things that matter. They didn't hope for a better life, they trained for it, and while everyone else kept talking about their dreams, they were quietly building the skill sets that made those dreams possible. Most people think staying stuck is about lack of opportunities, but it's really about lack of preparation. Opportunities come to everyone at some point, but only the skilled can grab them. If you don't have the capabilities to execute, even the best opportunity becomes a wasted one. That's why the biggest advantage you can ever give yourself is becoming someone who is ready, someone who has put in the work long before the moment arrives. Skills also destroy fear. When you know what you're doing, you no longer freeze, hesitate, or doubt yourself. Fear loses its power because competence replaces uncertainty. You move with confidence because you understand what you're capable of. That confidence translates into better decisions, stronger results, and a life where you control the direction instead of being pushed around by circumstances. The painful truth is that most people stay average not because they're incapable, but because they never decide to break the cycle. They wait for motivation instead of building discipline. They wait for clarity instead of taking action. They wait for a sign instead of creating momentum. And every time they wait, they fall further behind the people who are actually doing the work. Waiting is the enemy of progress because it gives you the illusion of safety while stealing your potential. Once you understand that skills are the only real currency that matters, everything becomes simple. You stop chasing shortcuts. You stop relying on luck. You stop expecting life to change on its own. Instead, you start building. You start learning. You start shaping your future with intention. And the moment you make that shift, your entire life begins to move in a different direction. Not because the world changed, but because you changed. Success doesn't care about what you meant to do, what you plan to do, or what you wish you had done by now. Intentions sound good in your head, but they don't move your life forward because nothing changes until you can actually produce something that matters. People spend years convincing themselves they're on the verge of greatness just because they think about it a lot, but thinking is not the same as building. Success responds to action, not imagination, and that's why so many people stay stuck in the gap between who they want to be and who they currently are. Most people underestimate how brutally honest success is. It doesn't reward almost or nearly or someday. It rewards the people who show up with the ability to solve real problems. You can have the purest heart, the biggest dreams, and the strongest desire, but if you can't deliver results, the world has no reason to reward you. Intentions might make you feel better about yourself temporarily, but they don't create income, they don't create opportunity, and they don't create a life you're proud of. Only skill does that. Only capability does that. Only consistent execution does that. People love telling stories about what they want to achieve, and they repeat them so many times they start believing their own narrative, even though nothing in their actions matches the story. They think dreaming is progress, but it isn't. Progress is measurable. Progress shows up in the form of new skills, stronger habits, improved discipline, and evidence that you're becoming better at something that has real value. If your results aren't changing, your intentions don't matter, because success only listens to what you can consistently produce. There's a reason you see people with fewer resources, less education, and fewer advantages rise faster than people with everything handed to them. It's because they build skills instead of relying on hope. They know that the world doesn't respond to good wishes, it responds to capability. And while others sit around waiting for the right moment, these people use every moment to learn, practice, and grow. They understand that success isn't emotional, it's mechanical. If you can do the work at a high enough level, you move forward. If you can't, you stay exactly where you are. Every skill you build adds weight to your value, not in theory, but in reality. When you become someone who can execute with precision, who can solve problems quickly, who can bring value wherever you go, opportunities start appearing not because of luck, but because people want what you can do. Doors open because you're useful, not because you're hopeful. Success follows skill the same way shadows follow light. It's automatic, predictable, and unavoidable once you've built enough capability. The world is not ignoring you out of malice, it simply doesn't see a reason to reward you yet. That's not meant to discourage you, it's meant to show you the way out. Once your skill set becomes undeniable, your life becomes undeniable. When you can deliver value at a level others can't, your circumstances have no choice but to shift. Your income changes, your opportunities change, your environment changes, and eventually even your identity changes because you've proven to yourself that you can do more than you ever believed. The gap between where you are and where you want to be is not made of failure or bad luck, it's made of unbuilt skills. Your intentions may be good, your heart may be pure, your dreams may be big, but none of those things replace the requirement for capability. If you want a different life, you need to be able to produce something that justifies that life. Once you accept that truth, you free yourself from excuses and step into a world where progress is finally in your control. And when you truly embrace the idea that success responds only to value, not intentions, you start living differently. You stop looking for shortcuts. You stop waiting for permission. You stop hoping someone notices how hard you're trying. Instead, you focus on becoming so skilled, so competent, so reliable that the world can't help but respond. Your life changes the second you stop complaining and start learning. Because complaining traps you in the same loop while learning gives you the power to break it. Most people don't realize how much energy they waste repeating the same frustrations over and over again, as if talking about the problem somehow solves it. Complaining feels good for a moment because it lets you justify where you are, but it never moves you closer to where you want to go. Learning, however, is uncomfortable at first because it forces you to face your weaknesses, your gaps, and your blind spots, yet that discomfort is the doorway to growth, capability, and transformation. When you complain, you strengthen the belief that the problem is outside of you. You shift blame to circumstances, to other people, to timing, or to luck. And in doing so, you quietly give away the power you need to change your life. But when you decide to learn instead, you reclaim that power. You acknowledge that even if the situation isn't your fault, it is still your responsibility to improve it. That shift in mindset is where momentum is born, because responsibility and learning always lead to progress, while complaining guarantees nothing but stagnation. The moment you choose learning over complaining, you begin to see the world differently. Suddenly, every challenge becomes a skill you can acquire, every setback becomes a lesson you can extract, and every obstacle becomes training that sharpens your edge. You stop seeing problems as signs that you should quit, and you start seeing them as feedback pointing you toward the exact capabilities you need to develop. This new perspective is what separates people who grow from people who repeat the same year of life over and over. Learning builds confidence in a way complaining never can. Complaining convinces you that you are powerless, but learning teaches you that you can adapt, improve, and overcome. With every skill you add, every book you read, every mistake you study, your confidence grows not because someone told you you're good enough, but because you've proven it to yourself through action. That internal certainty becomes a weapon, allowing you to step into situations you once avoided and opportunities you once doubted you could handle. Most people remain trapped because they never give themselves the chance to learn long enough to see the results. They complain at the first sign of struggle, quit before mastery, and then conclude that growth is impossible. But the people who rise are the ones who stay with the process, who lean into the difficulty, who treat learning like a daily habit rather than a temporary project. They understand that the path to a better life is built one skill at a time, one improvement at a time, one lesson at a time. The more you learn, the more valuable you become. Not just in terms of money, but in terms of problem solving, mindset, resilience, and adaptability. Complaining keeps your value low because it focuses on what you cannot control, while learning increases your value because it builds what you can control. And the world pays attention to value. Opportunities, relationships, Results and breakthroughs all gravitate toward the person who has put in the work to become capable. Eventually, learning becomes a lifestyle, not an event. You stop waiting for ideal conditions because you understand that every moment, even the difficult ones, contain information that can make you better. You stop comparing yourself to others because you realize that their progress has nothing to do with your willingness to learn. You stop chasing validation because the satisfaction of becoming a stronger version of yourself is far more rewarding than external praise. And when you consistently choose learning over complaining, life slowly but undeniably shifts. You start handling situations that used to overwhelm you. You start creating results that once felt out of reach. You start becoming a person who moves with intention instead of frustration. And all of it begins with that simple decision to stop wasting energy on what you can't control and start investing it into what will actually change your future. Skills create confidence because they give you proof that you can handle what life throws at you. When you become good at something, you no longer walk into situations with fear or hesitation. You walk in with certainty. You stop second guessing yourself. You stop shrinking around people who seem ahead of you, and you stop avoiding challenges that once intimidated you. This confidence doesn't come from hype or motivation. It comes from competence, the quiet understanding that you know what you're doing because you've put in the work to earn that ability. Skills build income because income is nothing more than an exchange of value, and value is created through capability. People don't get paid because they want money. They get paid because they can solve problems others can't. Every skill you learn sharpens your earning power. The world rewards the person who can produce results, who can execute, who can deliver. Income increases not by wishing for more, but by becoming someone who is worth more through the quality of skills you bring to the table. Skills create opportunities because they turn you into someone people notice. When you know how to do something exceptionally well, doors open that were once invisible. People invite you, trust you, hire you, invest in you, and rely on you because you bring real value. Opportunities are not random, they gravitate toward the skilled. The moment you become competent at a high level, life starts offering you chances that others only dream about, not because of luck, but because you've earned relevance. Skills create freedom because freedom comes from options, and options come from the ability to produce value anywhere you go. When your skills are strong, you're not trapped by circumstances, not dependent on one job, not stuck in one environment, and not limited by what others decide for you. You have the freedom to pivot, to start over, to build, to grow, to choose. Freedom becomes a byproduct of becoming someone who has the capabilities to survive and thrive regardless of the situation. Skills are the great equalizer because they don't care about your background, your age, your resources, or your starting point. They care about your willingness to practice, to fail, to try again, to stay consistent when everyone else gives up. You can't buy skills, you can't fake them, and you can't inherit them. You have to earn them through effort. But once you earn them, they stay with you forever. Skills become the foundation you stand on, a foundation that is stable, powerful, and yours alone. Skills also shape your identity because the more you learn, the more you start seeing yourself differently. You begin to recognize your own potential. You start taking yourself seriously. You stop saying, I can't, and start saying, I can learn. That shift rewires your entire mindset. You no longer feel small in the face of big goals because you understand you can acquire whatever ability is required to reach them. Your identity expands as your skill set expands, and you begin acting like a person capable of more. Skills build resilience because every time you learn something new, you face struggle, confusion, and discomfort, and you overcome it. This process teaches you how to endure, how to adapt, and how to stay calm under pressure. You become harder to break because you've trained yourself to overcome challenge after challenge. Resilience isn't something you're born with. It's something built through repetition, through learning, through showing up even when it's hard. And that resilience becomes an advantage in every area of life. Skills create momentum because the more capable you become, the faster your progress compounds. One skill leads to another, one improvement leads to the next, and slowly you begin stacking advantages that others don't have. You start solving problems quicker, making decisions faster, executing ideas more efficiently. Life feels less chaotic because you're no longer reacting, you're controlling. And all of it stems from the simple truth that when you build skills, you build the power to shape your own future. If you're not winning yet, it's because the capabilities you need to win haven't been built to the level they should be. And that's not an insult, it's a map. Most people take this truth personally and feel discouraged, but the people who rise take it as a direction. They understand that outcomes don't lie. Results reflect skill. If the results aren't there, it simply means the skill set required isn't fully developed yet. Not missing, not impossible, just not complete. And the moment you accept that your current level of capability determines your current level of success, you stop feeling defeated and start feeling in control. Winning becomes automatic only when the skill set behind it becomes automatic. This means repetition, refinement, and mastery. It means doing something so many times, so deliberately and so consistently that execution becomes instinct. Most people never reach this stage because they quit at good enough, they stop at discomfort, or they get bored before the skill compounds. But mastery is the point where winning becomes predictable. You don't rise because you're lucky. You rise because your capability guarantees performance regardless of circumstances. The truth is that many people think they're losing because they're unlucky, because others have advantages, or because life is unfair. But losing almost always traces back to not having the capabilities required to dominate the situation. Someone else wins because they're operating with more skill, more practice, more experience, or more discipline. You're not competing with their advantages, you're competing with their level of capability. When you shift your focus to building skills rather than comparing your story, you gain the only advantage that truly matters. Every time you develop a new capability, you shrink the gap between you and the results you want. The mistake people make is assuming the gap is huge, when in reality it's just unbuilt skill. They think success is reserved for the chosen few, when in reality the difference is simply who stayed with the process long enough to become exceptional. Capabilities compound the same way money does, slowly at first, then suddenly. The person who invests in their skills consistently eventually appears unstoppable, even though their overnight success took years of deliberate work. Winning requires capability because capability creates certainty. When you know you can deliver at a high level, pressure doesn't intimidate you, challenges don't paralyze you. Adversity doesn't collapse you. You've trained yourself to handle it, and that certainty translates into bold decisions, faster execution, and a willingness to take opportunities others are too scared to touch. People think winners are fearless, but they're not. They're just capable enough to move despite fear because they trust their skills more than they trust their doubts. Your capabilities also shape your behavior. When you lack skill, you hesitate, avoid, procrastinate, and overthink because you're secretly afraid you won't be able to perform. But when you build strong capabilities, those same situations become opportunities. You move quicker. You act decisively. You put yourself in rooms you once felt unqualified to enter. Behavior follows ability. The more you can do, the more you're willing to attempt. Capability expands what you believe is possible for you. The moment you realize capability is the real currency of winning, you stop wasting time on distractions and start investing in becoming better. You shift your focus from outcomes to inputs, from hoping to training, from wishing to building. And as you do, you begin noticing something powerful. Every new capability makes the next one easier to learn. Every improvement increases your capacity. You start stacking skills, stacking competence, stacking confidence, and soon your base level is higher than what used to be your best. And eventually, capability becomes the quiet engine behind everything you achieve. You don't have to hype yourself up. You don't have to pretend. You don't have to rely on luck or wait for perfect timing. You walk into opportunities with the calm expectation that you can handle whatever happens because you've already proven it to yourself through the skills you've built. Winning starts to feel natural. Not because life got easier, but because you became someone who can win consistently through the power of capability. Discipline becomes the silent engine that keeps you moving even when every emotion in your body tries to pull you backward. It is the steady force that shows up long after excitement has faded, long after motivation has disappeared, and long after the initial spark has gone cold. Discipline is cold, quiet, and predictable, and that is exactly why it wins. It does not rely on mood or energy, it relies on commitment. When you build the ability to act regardless of how you feel, you unlock a level of consistency most people will never experience. This is where real separation begins, not in inspiration, but in disciplined repetition. Skill building is the second layer of real growth, and it compounds in a way motivation never can. Motivation gives you a push once in a while, but skill gives you an unfair advantage every single day. Skills sharpen your mind, expand your opportunities, and increase your value in a way that luck simply cannot compete with. The more you practice, the more you learn, and the more you refine, the more dangerous you become. Skill is the currency that turns effort into results, and unlike talent, it is completely in your control. You build it, you own it, and no one can take it away. Motivation is unstable. Some days it's high, some days it's gone, and some days it even works against you. Relying on motivation is like trying to build a house on sand. The foundation shifts every time the weather changes. People who depend on motivation start strong but never finish. They collapse the moment things get difficult because they were never built to endure discomfort. Discipline, on the other hand, thrives in discomfort. It grows when things get tough. It strengthens when challenges appear. That is why it outruns motivation every time. Luck is unpredictable and uncontrollable, and waiting for it is the fastest way to waste your potential. People who rely on luck spend their life hoping instead of building. They wait for the perfect moment, the perfect opportunity, the perfect sign, and in that waiting, they lose years. Discipline creates its own opportunities through action, and skill turns those opportunities into long-term success. When luck shows up, disciplined people are ready. When it doesn't, they keep moving anyway. Talent is often overrated and misunderstood. It gives you a head start, nothing more. Without discipline, talented people burn out, fade out, or get overtaken by the ones who simply worked harder and smarter. Talent might open a door, but discipline and skill keep the door open and build a hallway of new ones. What truly matters is not what you are born with, but what you train, refine, and master through consistent effort. That's why the world is full of talented people who never made it and disciplined people who changed everything. Every time you practice when it's boring, every time you show up when you're tired, every time you choose improvement over comfort, you widen the gap between who you were and who you are becoming. You don't see the transformation daily, but over months and years, it becomes undeniable. This is how people with average beginnings become exceptional. Brick by brick, repetition by repetition, they build a version of themselves that only discipline could create. When you embrace the combination of discipline and skill building, life stops being random. You no longer wait for motivation, luck, or talent to save you. You take full responsibility for your growth, and that mindset alone puts you ahead of most people. The world becomes less about chance and more about preparation. You shift from hoping for opportunity to creating it, from wishing for change to engineering it, from dreaming of success to earning it. The truth is simple: discipline makes you consistent, skill makes you valuable, and together they make you unstoppable. Motivation might inspire you to start, and talent might make things easier at the beginning, but discipline and skill are what carry you to the finish line. They are the twin engines of long-term success, the tools that separate achievers from dreamers, and the reason effort, sustained, intentional, disciplined effort, will always beat every shortcut, every excuse, and every temporary burst of inspiration. When you finally decide to rise above excuses, distractions, and temporary feelings, you step into a version of yourself that most people never meet in their entire lifetime. This journey isn't about being perfect. It's about being committed. It's about choosing the hard path, the disciplined path, the path that forces you to grow even when no one is watching. You don't need applause, you don't need validation, and you don't need permission. All you need is the courage to show up for yourself again and again, especially on the days when it would be easier not to, because that's where transformation happens. That's where character is built. That's where your future shifts. And once you taste the power of consistency, once you see what discipline truly creates, you will never go back to living small again.